What's one material that saves lives, starts wars, and your grandma loves it? I'll give you a hint. It grows on sheep. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on to your butts because today we're going to talk about wool. One of the most culturally impactful and grossly underrated materials humanity has ever known. Just in India alone, there are over 54 million sheep. And in China, nearly 200 million sheep. Worldwide, there are over 1.2 billion domesticated sheep. Yet, despite the staggering number of domesticated sheep and the tremendous global demand for wool, it only accounts for a mere 2% of the materials used in modern clothing. So, despite all of its praise, why is wool used so little in modern apparel? In this video, we're diving deep into the highly underrated material that is wool. Hi, this is Miles with SwissLink. If you're new here, we import and distribute military surplus, make the storm bags as seen on Shark Tank, slang the Wavian fuel cans, and make the beloved SwissLink classic wool blankets. Be sure to subscribe and check out our site so that we can keep making videos just like this. Now, without further ado, let's jump into it. Now, I'm sure you already know what wool is. If somehow you don't, this video is going to blow your mind. Wool is the coat that a sheep produces during colder seasons to regulate its body temperature. And in just 1 year, a single sheep can produce over 30 pounds of wool. Similar to dogs, sheep were heavily domesticated by humans beginning way back in the Bronze Age. Back then, sheep were pretty much only good for meat, skin, and milk. Wool wasn't even on the radar because sheep would just shed their coats just like the way a cat or a dog would. Selective breeding for wool began around 6000 BC when farmers started choosing sheep with the finest wool for reproduction. The offspring of these sheep would often produce even higher quality wool. This practice gradually spread to West Asia, laying the groundwork for the modern wool industry. So how does that hair on a sheep become the blanket or sweater that you know about today? This transformation involves a long and labor-intensive process. Throughout the year, farmers carefully tend to their sheep, keeping them healthy and promoting the growth of thick, full coats. This ongoing care ensures the wool reaches its best quality for harvesting. When the wool has grown thick enough, the coat gets sheared and hand-cut into small bales. This process is necessary for modern sheep because of selective breeding. They no longer shed naturally, and too much wool can cause overheating due to its excellent heat-trapping ability. After shearing, the wool undergoes a lengthy journey that includes shipping, processing, factory weaving, and distribution before it finally becomes the products that we see in stores today. Worldwide, sheep produce billions of pounds of wool annually. That's a lot of wool, and it supports a vast and complex industry. And there isn't just one type of wool, it comes in many shapes and forms because various types are suited for different projects. And not all wool is built the same. We've got merino wool, we've got virgin wool, we've got Shetland wool, we've got wool from alpacas, we've got wool from rabbits. Merino wool is the most universal of all wools. It is the best known type of wool used for jackets, blankets, and activewear, and it comes from the usual farmed sheep. Virgin lamb's wool is what a farmer calls the very first coat that comes off of a lamb. After that, everything's just back to merino wool. Shetland wool, on the other hand, comes exclusively from the Shetland Islands, hand-sheared by Sean Connery himself. It's got coarser fibers and also weighs less than your average wool. So, depending on what kind of sheep and where it's grown, you can have a variety of wools for all different types of projects your grandma wants to make, including socks and Christmas sweaters. So, while wool is a renewable resource, it's also limited. There are only so many sheep, and they only can grow so much wool every year. That is why, number one, wool is in such high demand, and number two, why it isn't used in everything. Which is a shame because wool has some incredible benefits. If it can overheat a sheep, imagine what it can do as a sweater. We know that wool is renewable and great at trapping heat, but what exactly makes it so effective? And why can't other materials compete? There is a long list of benefits, so let me break it down into the natural benefits and the process benefits. Natural benefit number one, wool is highly insulating due to the way that the fibers are shaped. Sheep's wool is extremely curly. That same crimped structure of the fibers creates air pockets, which completely insulates the wool, making a blanket of warmth around the sheep. Oh, so warm. Wool is also naturally water repellent. Sheep don't have to worry about getting caught in the rain, even if they like pina coladas, because their wool has a waxy coating. If you like pina coladas. That is a feature that remains even after processing. Hell yeah, wool. So we've talked about some of the natural benefits of wool, but after it's processed, it gains even more benefits. First off, it's fire resistant. Wool has an ignition point of over 600 degrees Fahrenheit. So unless you plan on jumping into a furnace, you don't really have to worry about your wool blanket getting caught on fire. Wool is also incredibly elastic. It can stretch up to 30% when dry and up to 50% when wet. It's naturally stain resistant, it's naturally flame retardant, it's naturally antimicrobial, it doesn't conduct electricity easily, it's odor resistant, it traps moisture and heat, prevents bacteria buildup, which is what usually causes that funk and stank in your clothes. Not gonna have that. Not gonna have any funky, stanky wool socks. You're just gonna have warm wool socks, which is insulating even when wet. Durability, wool is unmatched. Silk from little worms can only be folded over about 1,200 times before it breaks. Cotton can only handle 3,000 folds, but wool, it can be folded over 20,000 times. You can fold wool over 20,000 times before it tears. That's a lot. I know I'm raving a little bit about wool, but when you compare it to modern technology and modern materials, it's really hard not to get excited about it because it does so much. And I'm not the only one who loves wool, trust me. Today, lots of campers, hikers, backpackers, they rely on wool for their blankets and socks and parkas. Heck, my buddy Matt even uses his classic wool picnic blanket as a shooting mat when he's out obliterating storm bags. Historically, wool was a big deal too. In the Roman Empire, which I never think about, the city of Tarentum was known for producing the finest wool. And because of that, it was highly sought after by surrounding cities and forces. Wool was also a major export during the 100 Years' War. And one of the reasons that King Edward III went to war to protect his wool trade with the Flanders. During World War I and World War II, almost all of the military uniforms on all sides were made out of wool, and for good reason too. Because of wool's ability to resist bacterial growth, it was absolutely essential to use in the trenches. Need a coat? Wool. Got trench foot from the mud? Wool socks. Broke the Geneva Convention? Wool blanket keeps you warm in prison. Wool's long history with humanity proves its value. It's not used as much as you think it would be in the modern apparel industry. The primary reasons for that come down to cost, care requirements, and competition from synthetic fibers. Wool is more expensive to produce than other cost-effective materials like cotton or polyester that can be mass-produced cheaply and quickly. Because it takes sheep months to grow wool, its supply is limited, and that scarcity drives up prices, making wool garments a premium choice compared to budget-friendly synthetic garments. Additionally, wool garments often require special care. While modern processing can make wool machine washable, it still doesn't match the low maintenance appeal of synthetic fibers, which are more resistant to shrinking and can be thrown in a standard wash without a second thought. Finally, the rise of synthetic materials like polyester, acrylic, and nylon, developed for their affordability and versatility, has pushed wool to the sidelines. These man-made fibers can mimic some of wool's properties like warmth and durability, but at a fraction of the cost. For many modern brands, the economics simply favor synthetics over natural fibers like wool. Though wool may not dominate today's industry, it remains a prized material for those who value quality, sustainability, and performance. Now that you're an expert on wool, it's clear why it is such an underrated material. Here at SwissLink, we appreciate and value wool for what it is, and we've created a whole line of wool blankets and pants. If you love wool as much as I do, check a link in the description and take a look at our stuff. I designed the blankets myself, and I gotta say, to toot my own horn, they look pretty sweet. If you found this video helpful, please consider subscribing, giving this a thumbs up, or leaving a comment. Everything helps. We really appreciate your time today. Have a good one.